Okay, good evening, or I guess just about. So, what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna go through a couple of these, try and give you guys a little help if you get stuck. That way, if you're working on this and I'm not around, you can access this. So, we'll start off on number one. So, I'm gonna be referring a lot to the flowcharts that we had. So those are really crucial. Give you guys one for the 45-45-90 triangle, one for the 30-60-90 triangle. So we're going to go through the same type of problems every single time. It's going to be, which one are we using? 45-45-90, 30-60-90. Okay, which column are we using, or which, avenue are we using? The 45-45-90 one has 2, the 30-60-90 one has 3. So, number one, well, we see right there that this is 45 degrees. So it's a 45-45-90. So what we want to do is we want to look at it and go, okay, do we have a leg or the hypotenuse? If you're not sure which is which, we know that the hypotenuse is always the one directly across from the 90-degree angle. So this is a leg right here. So we look at our flow chart. We look at the 45-45-90 one. We look at given leg, and it says, well, first thing we do is we take that value and we plug it in for the other leg. So the other leg is x, so we know that's 13. We then sit there and we take our leg value and we multiply it by the square root of 2, and we get 13 radical 2, and that's our hypotenuse. Easy peasy. I'm not necessarily just going to do the odds or just going to do the evens. I'm going to pick and choose, kind of look through, make sure that each type of problem gets its go. So I'm looking at number 2. So again, we have a 45-45-90 triangle, except this time we do have the hypotenuse. So we look at the chart and it says, well, what we're going to do is we take the hypotenuse and we multiply it by the square root of 2 over 2. If you remember, that's the same thing as dividing by the square root of 2. So it's kind of the opposite of what we did over here. So we can't multiply 30 in the square root of 2, so we just end up with 30 radical 2. Now on the bottom, remember when you're multiplying a whole number by a fraction, you put the whole number over 1. 2 times 1 is 2. Now we can actually reduce this because 30 divided by 2 is 15. So we get 15 radical 2. We look back at our flow chart, and it says enter that value for both legs. So we go, okay, here we go. Okay, number 3. Number 3, it's a 30-60-90. How do we know that? Because we've got a 60 there. So that makes this my short leg, this my long leg, and once again, this is my hypotenuse. So we're given the short leg. So if I'm looking at my flow chart, that's the one on the far left. And it says take your short leg and multiply it by the square root of 3 to get the long leg. So you go 3 times the square root of 3 equals 3 radical 3, and that's our long leg. Why? We then take our short leg, multiply it by 2, and that's how we get our hypotenuse. Okay. Let's look at number 7. Okay. So number 7, we have a 45-45-90, and that's our hypotenuse. So what we're going to do is we're going to go 2 square root of 14, and it tells us what we're going to do is we're going to multiply this by 2 square root of 2 over 2. That's not what I wanted to do. It's over 1. So when we multiply this, what we get is we get 2 times the square root of 14 times 2 over 2. Those 2's are going to cancel out, so we just end up with the square root of 28. 28 is 2 times 14. 14 is 2 times 7. So when we do a prime factorization, we get 2 times 2 times 7. We have one set of 2's there. We take them out, and we get 2 radical 7. And we know, we look at our flow chart, and it says enter that value for both of the legs. And that's it. So number 8 is a 30, 60, 90. We know that because we got that 30-degree angle right there. And that makes this the short leg. Across from the 90 is always the hypotenuse. And this is the long leg right there. So we're given the long leg. So we look at our flow chart, and that's the middle column. This is the first thing we want to do is we want to take our long leg, we want to multiply it by the square root of 3 over 3, and that's going to equal our short leg. So we go 24 times square root of 3 over 3 equals our short leg is y. So that gives us 24 times the square root of 3 over 3. And again, we have 24 divided by 3, which equals 8. So we get 8 radical 3 equals y. And that's our short leg. We look at our chart then. It says then we take our short leg, and we multiply it by 2 to get the hypotenuse, which in this case is x. So we're going to go 8 radical 3 times 2 equals x. Now, because this is underneath the radical, we don't really do anything with it. So all we do is we multiply the 8 and the 2 together, and we get 16 radical 3. So notice the difference between that and what we did back on 7 when we multiplied the 2 radicals together. So if we have 2 radicals, we can multiply them together. If we have 2 regular numbers, integers, we can multiply them together. And if we had something like 6 radical 2 times 3 radical 3, we could actually multiply those together, and that would be 6 times 3 times the square root of 2 times 3, or 18 radical 6. Okay, that's just an example for you. Okay, so anyway, there we go. So now, okay, 9's a little tricky, so let's show that one. That's going to explain kind of how to do the next group of them. So this is a 30, 60, 90, and we see that what we're looking at is across from the 90-degree angle, so that's our hypotenuse. So the first thing we do, according to our flow chart, hypotenuse is on the far right of the 30, 60, and 90 flow chart. We take our hypotenuse and we divide by 2. And that's going to give us our short leg. So we end up with 11 radical 3 equals our short leg, which in this case is x, so we have 11 radical 3. We then multiply 11 radical 3 by the square root of 3 to get our long leg. And notice what happens here. Whenever you multiply the square root of a number by itself, you just get whatever that number is. Square root of 2 times the square root of 2 equals 2. Square root of 10 times the square root of 10 equals 10. Square root of x times the square root of x equals x. It doesn't matter what number it is, because the square root is simply that number which, when multiplied itself, equals whatever you're asking it. And then when you multiply it by yourself, that's what you get. Pretty straightforward. So we have 11 times 3, or 33. Okay, so let's look down at number 13. So 13, what we're going to do here is we need to start with 17 and then just kind of go through and figure out what's going on. So when we do that, first thing we're going to start off is we're going to look at this triangle right here. Okay, it's a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Our short leg is 17, and x is our long leg. Well, we know that our short leg times the square root of 3 equals our long leg. So that means that 17 times the square root of 3 equals x, or that 17 radical 3 is equal to x, so we just drop that in there. Okay, so now we need to figure out y and z, which are these two. Well, to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to, again, be focusing on this triangle. We know that this is 17 radical 3. We know that the hypotenuse of that triangle is going to be the short leg times 2, 34. And now what we notice is that 34 is a leg on this 45, 45, 90 triangle. So that's 34. We look at our 45, 45, 90 flow chart. This is a leg, not the hypotenuse. Y is our hypotenuse. So it says, take that 34 value and plug it in for the other leg. Okay. And then I go 34 times the square root of 2. And so that gives me 34 radical 2 as the hypotenuse. For number 14, I'm going to start here because that's the number I get. So this is, let's fill out this 30, 60, 90 triangle. This is, so for the 30, 60, 90 triangle, it's important to realize that this right here is my 90-degree angle. Even though this is a 90-degree angle, it's a 90-degree angle for this triangle right here. Okay, so that means that this right here is a 30-degree angle, this is 90, and so this is 60. Anyway, so this 27 right here, that's a long leg. So we take our long leg, we multiply it by the square root of 3 over 3, put it over 1, so we get 27 radical 3 over 3, and 27 divided by 3 equals 9. So that means the short leg of this triangle, which is this one right here, is 9 radical 3. Okay, now notice I don't put anything down in our answer box because we're not being asked what that is. But then, this right here, this is the hypotenuse of this triangle that I started with. And to get that, I look at my flow chart. Once I get my short leg, I go 9 radical 3 times 2. And that's going to give me that hypotenuse right here, x, which is going to be 18 radical 3. Okay, so now I'm looking at this 30, 60, 90 triangle. And that 9 radical 3, again, that's my long leg. So we look at our chart, and it says to multiply this by the square root of 3 over 3. Remember, when we multiply the square root of 3 times the square root of 3, we just get 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 9 times 1 is 9. So that means that z right there is 9. We then multiply that by 2 to get the hypotenuse. 9 times 2 is 18. Okay, so here it says find the perimeter of the triangle. So we know that the perimeter is all 3 of these together. So what we need to do, I'm just going to show you how hopefully you guys can then try it, is I know that this right here, this half of the equilateral triangle, is a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So I can use this number right here as the long leg, multiply it by the square root of 3 over 3, find the short leg, and then multiply the short leg by 2, and that's going to give me this. Multiply that number, that hypotenuse, by 3, and that's going to be the perimeter. Okay, so that's going to do it for tonight. Hopefully, you guys, this gives you the walkthrough that you need and the understanding of how each of these work. If not, we can go over some of it tomorrow. Have a wonderful evening.